Taken 2 continues the intense story of Bryan Mills, the ex-CIA operative who rescued his daughter, Kim, from a human trafficking ring in the first movie. This time, the stakes are even higher as Bryan himself becomes a target of revenge. The film begins with Murad Haksa, the father of one of the men Bryan killed during his rescue mission in Paris, seeking vengeance. Murad is a dangerous Albanian mob leader, and he swears to hunt down Bryan and make him pay for the death of his son. Meanwhile, Bryan is living a quiet life in Los Angeles, trying to rebuild his relationship with Kim and his ex-wife, Lenore. Kim is dealing with the aftermath of her traumatic experience, and Lenore is going through a rough divorce from her second husband. To bring the family closer together, Bryan suggests a trip to Istanbul, where he is working as a private security consultant. Bryan flies to Istanbul for a short job and is soon joined by Lenore and Kim. For a brief moment, everything seems peaceful and they enjoy their vacation. However, Murad and his men have tracked Bryan down and are waiting for the right moment to strike. One afternoon, while Bryan and Lenore are walking through the streets of Istanbul, Murad's men attack. Bryan realizes they are being followed, but before he can act, Lenore is captured. Bryan fights off several attackers, but is eventually overwhelmed and taken hostage as well. He and Lenore are bound and taken to an unknown location, while Kim, who is still at the hotel, remains unaware of the danger. Using his quick thinking and CIA training, Bryan secretly calls Kim, warning her about the situation and instructing her on how to stay safe. He tells her to gather everything she can, including weapons and supplies, and to escape from the hotel. Bryan then gives Kim specific instructions on how to help him track down his location using a map and the sounds she hears from outside. Kim, who is frightened but determined, follows her father's instructions. She successfully evades the kidnappers and uses her newfound skills to locate Bryan's position. In an intense and dangerous sequence, Kim throws grenades to help her father determine his location based on the sound of the explosions. Bryan manages to free himself and escape, but Lenore is still being held captive. Bryan tracks down Murad and his men, leading to several intense chase scenes through the narrow streets and rooftops of Istanbul. Along the way, Bryan fights off Murad's goons with his expert hand-to-hand combat and resourcefulness. The action is relentless as Bryan uses his tactical skills to outsmart his enemies. Eventually, Bryan finds Lenore, who has been brutally beaten and is on the verge of death. He fights through Murad's remaining men and rescues her, but the final showdown with Murad himself is still to come. In a climactic scene, Bryan confronts Murad in an abandoned bathhouse. Murad, filled with rage and thirst for vengeance, challenges Bryan to a final fight. Despite Murad's anger, Bryan remains calm and composed, knowing that his skills will prevail. In the end, Bryan spares Murad's life, telling him that he has already killed enough people. Bryan warns Murad to let go of his vendetta, but Murad, consumed by revenge, tries to attack Bryan again. In the final moment of the fight, Bryan kills Murad in self-defense. With the danger finally over, Bryan returns to Lenore and Kim. Lenore, though wounded, survives and the family reunites. They leave Istanbul and return to Los Angeles, their bond stronger than ever after surviving yet another harrowing ordeal. Taken 2 is an action-packed thriller that expands on the first film's themes of family, vengeance, and survival. Bryan Mills once again uses his skills as a former CIA operative to protect his loved ones, proving that he will stop at nothing to keep his family safe. The film's high-stakes action scenes and emotional core make it a gripping continuation of Bryan's story.